Hello, I'm Lorianne Lumby, and this is the Way of Love video podcast. The Way of Love video podcast is an inspirational journey into the ultimate purpose of our lives, to remember our true nature as love. Gathering wisdom and insights from ancient traditions, I piece together and present the knowledge and tools that we all need to transcend division and return to love. What begins as an individual journey blossoms into a movement that has the potential to change our world. Today's topic is one that I have tried really hard to avoid. But today I find that I can no longer avoid acknowledging and recognizing that the way of love is political. I continue to try to call myself a non-political person and to say that the work that I do isn't political. But today, as I was listening to anti-political ads, in other words, ads that are against people that are running, and the language used in these anti-ads, specifically around the topic of the woke, quote unquote, woke agenda. I don't know what they think they mean when they say woke agenda. Well, I know what they mean. In the minds of some, woke alludes to some form of neo-socialism, some sort of anti-America, some sort of radical leftist agenda. But that's not at all what I think of when I think of woke. And I'm going to bypass that word completely because it means too many things to too many different people, and too many people are using it in a really non-loving, conflictual, hateful kind of way. I'm just going to put it this way. When I think of the way of love, to me, it means just that, the way of love. How does love call us to be and live and move upon our world? There have been many, many teachers that have come before us that have spoken on this topic, and I will speak specifically to the one that I consider to be my greatest teacher. And that teacher is Jesus of Nazareth. Now, before you get your unders in a bundle, I'm not a Bible-waving Christian. Yes, I was raised Catholic. Yes, I continue to abide by many of the things that I grew up with. But I am not here to proselytize or to convert people into following any sort of religion. Instead, my relationship with Jesus bypasses all of that. It goes beyond dogma and doctrine and institutional interpretations, patriarchal, hierarchical, clerical, institutional interpretations of Jesus's words, specifically used in a way to support a specific political agenda. And that agenda was the agenda of, at least initially, of Emperor Constantine. Now that was 2,000, not quite 2,000 years ago. But what I take from Jesus's teachings are some really simple things. Love your neighbor. Everyone's your neighbor. care for those who are less fortunate than you. Share what you have. If you have excess, share it with those in need. Clothe the naked, feed the hungry, find housing and support for the homeless, heal the sick, open the eyes of the blind, set prisoners free. Those, to me, are very basic teachings. And those teachings, to me, are universal. Those teachings are not limited to only those who follow my faith, only those who believe who I believe, only those who look like me, only those who are from my country, or go to my church, or live in my neighborhood, or speak my language. Those teachings are universal. Love your neighbor, and everyone is your neighbor. What does that mean to love your neighbor? It means treat each other with kindness. Be kind to one another. Reach out a hand to help those in need. Offer support for the grieving and those who are suffering loss. Be kind. Be generous. Be patient. We live in a world that is so difficult already. Why make it worse by inflicting our need to control into someone else's experience? If there are those in our culture, in our world, who are hungry or struggling or don't have access to affordable health care or don't have access to a decent education, I believe that love says, help them. Find a way to be a source of support so that all of the abundance of this world can be enjoyed by everyone, not just the 1% of the 1%, which now I think it's even less than 1%. The world that we've been given is abundant. We have the resources to provide for the food, clothing, and shelter of every being on this planet. It is only because of human greed that there is lack. It is only because of human greed that our earth is dying, that we're experiencing dramatic drought and climate change and crazy, insane weather. Some would call what I just described a woke agenda. Woke because, God forbid, we be a source of love and support for one another. God forbid we share what we have with those in need. Capitalism has profound opportunities to support initiative and encourage independence and self-sufficiency. But when taken to its extreme, it has become a vehicle for profound and disgusting greed. The way of love is political. It's political because it challenges us. It challenges us to step outside of our myopic lens, to take off our blinders, to look at what's right in front of us right now. the people in our community that are struggling, the people in our world that are seeking shelter and asylum, the people living in war-torn nations that want not just something better for themselves and their children, but they want to live. If wanting to support people in the search for freedom, in the search for having their basic needs met, in the search for adequate health care and education, if all of that is a woke agenda, then call me woke. But again, I don't like that word because of the way it's been twisted, the way it's been used to demonize and separate and condemn. The way of love is the way of love. Love your neighbor. Everyone's your neighbor. Feed the hungry, clothe the naked, provide housing and protection for those who have not. Care for your veterans. Care for the poor. Medical care should not be a privilege, and neither should a quality education. Love suggests this. If we're called to heal the sick, we're called to provide health care. If we're called to open the eyes of the blind, we're called to educate. And we're called to educate truth. And what I mean by truth is reality. For God's sakes, the United States is a racist country, period. It's part of our history. It was part of the founding fathers' agenda. So to ignore the history of racism here is pure ignorance. To not acknowledge people's rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is un-American. To disregard, to demonize diversity is unkind. It's not loving. It's judgmental, and in some cases, ignorant. The way of love is political. And as much as I hate to say it, I can no longer deny it. Love calls me to be love in the world, and that's to everyone. Love calls me to honor diversity, to not just honor it, to celebrate it. My God, think of the things we can learn from each other if we would reach out a hand and say, I want to know more. Help me understand. Explain this to me. Some of my favorite moments in my life have been those where I have had an opportunity to learn from somebody from another culture, to be educated in their beliefs, their practices, to understand the foundation and the philosophy of how they live and why. It is only in seeking that understanding that we can tear down these walls of division. The way of love calls us not to divide. It asks us to tear down those walls. Does prejudice separate us? Then find out how to know someone that is different than you. Are you afraid of your jobs being taken away? Come to understand the workings of our economy. Come to understand and hold accountable corporations that no longer care for their employees, but instead care only for their profits, their CEO dividends, and their shareholder dividends and their CEO salaries. When your CEO makes $28 million a year and the median salary of that company's employees is $26,000, something's very wrong. The way of love is political. The way of love says everyone should have an equal opportunity to come to know who they are, to discover their gifts, to be supported and empowered in those gifts. Everyone should have access to a quality education and quality health care. Everyone has the right to vote. And that vote cannot be taken away or usurped because some self-appointed leader is having a hissy fit because they're not getting their way. The way of love says be kind, be patient, be understanding, seek knowledge, seek wisdom, seek understanding. Find a way to be a source of support for those who have not. Share your excess with others. Be a voice of liberty, equality, honoring diversity, celebrating diversity. Honoring the rights of all human beings as equally of value. Recognizing that women and children, the elderly, those who have fought for your country, that they have rights equal, if not more, to those in perceived positions of power. The way of love is political. The way of love is political because it disturbs the status quo. It challenges systems that are built on fear and manipulating through power and control. Challenging systems of oppression, calling out that in our world that is not love. Calling out racism, sexism, genderism. The way of love is political, and I can no longer deny it. And that puts me in the category of the woke agenda, then so be it. I would rather be a person that is awake and paying attention and calling on our world to be love than one who looks away, ignores the suffering in our world, abides by hatred, and cares not if children, innocent children, are dying, getting killed in their classrooms. Disregarding those who provide what we need in order to thrive as a culture. Love says, love your neighbor, and everyone is your neighbor. It is political. It's radical. And it's the only way that we are going to positively change our world. I'm Lorianne Lumbee, and this is The Way of Love. If you found this to be helpful, inspiring, comforting, please like and share. Subscribe to this channel. And if you're interested in more of what we have to offer at Soul School, my website address is www.loriannlumbee.com. Thank you.